Good afternoon, folks. Hope everybody's doing okay. You'll notice that I got a new camera. Now I don't look like some red-headed crazy mother. Let's get started. I got way too much stuff open too. Okay, so we got started last week with foundations and site work. And today we're going to keep moving forward into masonry. And the masonry will be our first lab. As it stands right now, it looks like our first lab will be, let me see, let me check my calendar right quick. On February 2nd will be our first lab. And I will have the lab schedule. Again, if there's a specific day that you would like, either Tuesday or Thursday, and you haven't already contacted me, just send me a text and just let me know which day you prefer. And I will get you into that. All right, so Mason, let me unplug this heater right quick. I feel like I'm shouting. So masonry. So I'm going to start talking about masonry, and I've opened up a whole ton of things here. If any of these don't work, please send me a text message and I will try to render that and get that going for you. So as far as masonry is concerned, masonry has been around since pretty much the beginning of time. And it's, you know, we've obviously we've talked about, or you guys have heard about the Egyptian pyramids and so forth. And so this is probably one of the most famous historical means of masonry that we know. And there were different building blocks on to getting to this, to the Great Pyramids of Giza. And so let's start by there, and let's talk about the Egyptian maybe. The Egyptian pyramids. So they were, to say the least, a huge, huge monumental stepping stone for mankind. And we've had several different types of pyramids before we got to the Great Pyramids of Giza. For instance, let's see if I can find this right quick. Map of So yeah, so okay. So we go into these maps here, and you can kind of see where, different pyramids and different temples were built. And so it's said that these limestone pyramids here were were the limestone was cultivated from very far away, and they were moved in these big building blocks. It has also been said that the pyramids were built by slaves, but new information lately has come out that suggests that the pyramids were actually not. They were built by skilled masons in a that were paid and took a lot of care and into these, you know, to their work and so forth. So it's really kind of it's kind of hard to decide, you know, what really went on back then, because it's so far away, so long ago, and we've had limited resources as far as our historical stuff, and even how they were moved and put into place. Here we've got a, you know, obviously we've got the slave uh, notion going here, but then there's, you know, we can look at different things as far as how these were built. So so let's kind of start off with, you know, one of the first pyramids that was built, and it was the stepped pyramid. The stepped pyramids were kind of a trial run, and so I want you to kind of hold on to this theory here for a minute, because I want to go over to another part of the world and talk about another pyramid. And let's look at the similarities here. All right, so these are pyramids from South America, Central and South America. You know, there's not much difference really if you look at these two, you know, other than the fact that this was, you know, several 100,000 years or several thousand years before the ones that were in the Mayan and Inca development. So they had something going here, and then how did these people, you know, learn about it as well and get that technology? Well, you know, it was the aliens. They built these, you know, for landing sites. And, you know, if you guys have ever seen that movie, I can't think of it right now. Oh, gone it. My mind is just a mess sometimes. But anyway, you know, different theories and conspiracy theories as to why these were made. But mostly it was a temple of burial. And so the stepped pyramids were designed to get up in the sky and, you know, to make a temple. So then, you know, let's try to make them flat as possible. And so we have the bent pyramid. Actually, we'll just hit on the bent and red pyramid. So we have the bent pyramid. So they started from the stepped portion, and they're looking to get this. All right, that's what they're trying to do. But, you know, over and over and over, these things would just, you know, they'd get so far up and they would just disintegrate. They would just fall in from their own weight, and they just wouldn't take. Fallen pyramid. So let's see. Here's the fallen pyramid. So it was, you know, it just basically it crushed under its own weight, and they could not figure out the perfect angle, I guess you could say. So that this is what they were trying to do. And you'll see that these smaller ones here, step pyramids, and then, you know, these were trial runs to get to the big ones here. And so, you know, it's just basically block upon block upon block, and these things are enormous. And so it's just, it's really cool. And so different pyramids took on different spaces, and so that they get to here. Well, what scientists have actually figured out is, as far as getting to the pyramid that we know today, is the fact that pi was used, 3.14 was used in the construction of this, in the design portion of it, and they were able to figure out what the perfect angle was so that they could end up building these things. Now, I've made mention to this one, you know, these still maintain a stepped version here, where these took on a more smooth version. So what was the difference? Well, you think about the desert, and in the desert, it's fairly flat spaces, and there's no trees around, and you can see for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. So these pyramids were designed to get way up in the sky and they were polished. They had really nice limestone polishes on them, which is now deteriorated away. But if you'll notice in this one here, some of it still remains, and they were just absolutely aligned with gold and silver and anything that would shine. And that is what these pyramids were going for. They were going for a look. They wanted the sun to be able to bounce off of these things and go forever and be seen for miles and miles and miles. Whereas these pyramids that are in the South and Central America, these were designed in a little different way. Well, let's look at this picture here. You've got all of this forest around here. The land is not maybe as flat as it would be over there in the desert, but nevertheless, it's hard to get up above this canopy. So they would put these really, really high into the sky so that the leaders could get up here and they could look over what they ruled. Okay, so the old saying, what is it in the Lion King? He looks at how much land do we govern, and it's like as far as the eye can see. And the higher the temples, then we could get out and we could see these. But now, one thing that was really odd about these type of temples were the fact that they were built in a different built in a different time and in a different place, and they were built for a different purpose. So if I can get to the eraser here. All right, so with the Egyptian pyramids, we had smooth sides on it. The sun would hit this and it would send off all of these glorious light rays and so forth. But then when we got over here to the stepped pyramids and the Incas and the Mayans, we found that these were built in a little different fashion. So basically, the people who could stand here and look up at these temples, they could call out to the temple and the temple would talk back to them. So what was happening was they would call out to the temple, and that would, the sound would bounce off different steps at different times and return to the person, and it created an echo effect. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to stand to get in a stadium somewhere like ASU maybe, or the stadiums that they have. I can't think of anything in Asheville, but I'm sure the high schools and so forth, any stadium that has this step type portion on it, you can stand down here and you can holler, and you can basically sense the difference in timing, and you can understand what these primitive people might, think that, this is a god. The temple, we've built this temple, temple talks back to us, and it is a god. So it's really weird. So what I was trying to get at was we have sight here. So these were designed for sight, and these were designed for sound. So two different types of temples, two different types of the world, or two different places in the world, but then they have different meanings. So how are these things put together? Again, when we're looking at these, they're put together with these huge blocks. We did not have what is known today as concrete, but we just had limestone. We had lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of limestone. So we found out that we could put these blocks together with minimal limestone to make them nice and flat. And then we could use this same limestone, which is a byproduct of trying to carve these blocks into a cube, and we could mix it with water and plaster it on the side here, and then it's going to stay for all intents and purposes. So that is one of the first starts on being Masons per se. So all over the world, we have had different cultures using masonry to make these just absolutely huge and beautiful structures. And this is the Great Wall of China. And so it was built to keep out Mongolians from invading China. And again, I mean, you know, you think about this is a long freaking way from civilization in most cases. And, you know, how many masons did it take to build this? Where did they get the stone? Where did they get the mortar? And so forth like that. And it's just absolutely crazy to think about, you know, doing this in today's time. So let's move forward to a little bit into the Roman Empire. So for years, let me go back and just say this: for years, the Masons were using the products at hand until we came to the Roman Empire. So in the Roman Empire, Masonry took a huge turn in the discovery of cement. So let's think about cement for just a second. Cement. So what is so special about cement? The biggest thing is I'm hoping I'm spelling this right. Hydration. So what the heck does hydration mean? Hydration means it is a chemical reaction that happens with water. All right. So anytime we add water to something and we get a chemical reaction, then we call it hydration. And cement is that perfect hydration chemical reaction. Cement is can cure, and we never ever want to use the word dry. It will cure underwater. All right. So it will harden underwater, and it is basically the simplest of all elements that we think about, which goes right back to what we were using all along, is limestone. So to get this cement, what we do is we take limestone, or at least wise today. Now, the limestone or the cement that was used in the days of the Roman Empire is not the same recipe that we had today, even though it is still cured, with 100% water and makes a huge difference. We cannot today still, with the technology that we have, we cannot figure out this recipe of concrete that they used in the Roman Empire. So to get the cement that we use today, we take the limestone and we just absolutely pulverize it. We make it very, very small into a powder form. And then we're going to heat it. Actually, let me just go back here for just a second. Let's crush it. We're going to crush it. We're going to heat it to extreme heats, 2,000 to 5,000 degrees. I'm not really sure the specifics on that. And when we heat it, we're burning out all of the impurities out of it, and we end up with what is known as clinkers. So a clinker is nothing more than just a big old wad of this limestone that's been heated, and it clumps together. And then we take that and we crush it again. And when we crush it, again, it turns into very, very fine powder. And that fine, fine powder is cement. It's called Portland cement. Now, Portland cement is nothing more than cement that we use every day. Why do we call it Portland cement? Well, so here we had the Romans, and I don't know what years we're talking about here, but when the Roman Empire fell, we lost the recipe to cement. We lost it. Humankind lost it. All right. So again, let me go back and do some searching here, because I kind of want to get you guys in the Roman Empire. The Roman, this starts with an E, doesn't it? Empire. Roman Empire. So we're talking 1117 AD to about 39 AD. Okay, so 390 AD. All right, that's when we lost cement. Keep that in mind. All right. So then in the 1880s, I think, I'll just look that up right quick. Oh, 18, well, more than that, 1824. Okay, so 1824. How many years is that? That's, well, it's 1824 years plus 380, because it works backwards. So, right? No, it doesn't work backwards, because we started Roman Empire in the 100 AD. So, I don't know. I never have understood this AD time. Wait a minute. AD time is the same as what we're doing now. AD, not BC. I'm confusing myself. All right. So, yeah. So 300 less 1800. So 1100 years we have been without cement, without the recipe to cement. So Portland is a country over in Europe, and they have rocks around there that looks like this. So the cement was called Portland cement because it looked like the stones of Portland. And that's where that name comes from. That has nothing to do with the inventor's name of Portland. So in Roman times, when we're looking at this, you know, all of these beautiful things were built during the Roman time. And you know, we had societies that were starting to get started. The Freemasons. All right. So a Freemason is a Mason that can work for anybody he wants to, kind of like a freelance Mason. The other Masons might have been indentured to a specific person or government, but a Freemason, he could go out, he could do work for Sam next door, or he could do work for the government of Rome and so forth and like that. So they ended up getting them basically a union together, and you probably have, you know most of the stories behind some of the Freemason stuff. If not, that's a really cool society there to research, and we won't get into that here in this class, but take some time to research Freemasons yourself. They do some pretty good work from what I understand. I'm not a Mason myself. I mean, I'm a Mason, I'm not a Freemason, but go and check that out. It might, be doable. So, because of cement, which goes into making of concrete, we have just absolutely, we can do all sorts of really cool stuff with concrete. And, it's a game changer. It's better than sliced bread. And so concrete basically allowed man to do all kinds of things. And it's really cool at some of the stuff that's can be done here with concrete. Some of it's simple, some of it's very elaborate. And it's changed. So even in the skylines of New York, due to masonry, then we have tons of masonry buildings that went up. Okay. And, these things at the time when they were built back in the 20s and the 30s, they were just, jaw dropping, because look at the height that we can get out of this. Matter of fact, let's just look at Asheville, for instance. You know, some of these buildings in Asheville are, you know, amazing too. And they're just, you know, they're wondrous to look at. Takes a lot of work to build these, and it's just amazing at some of the stuff that you can do with these. However, we found out that there was a problem pretty much that went right back to the Egyptians. Is, well, we can only go so high with brick and mortar. After that, we are, you know, we're going to fail. I put Asheville in the wrong place, didn't I? So, you know, in New York especially, you will see that most of these buildings in New York only can go so high. Empire State Building, Chrysler Building. And, you know, this was monumental to get this high. And it was, everyone was trying to outbeat the other guy, right? They were trying to build higher and higher each time. But then we're starting to reach the limits of our concrete and mortar, because all of this is pressing on these last ones. You think about the amount of weight that's on the top brick and the amount of weight that's on the bottom brick. Okay, so the amount of weight that's on the bottom brick is all of these other bricks on top of that, plus you know, the windows and doors and all the dead loads and all the live loads, and God forbid it ever snow and add some more weight to it. So at that time, we had to kind of relook at things and start going with metal and glass. And so, you know, the only way that we could get any taller was to go with metal and glass. And that's where it took place. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, you know, concrete just absolutely changed our life. So, but what is concrete? What does, you know, we've got Portland cement, but now we're talking about concrete. What's the difference in Portland cement and concrete? So I hear a lot of people say, well, I poured some cement yesterday. We poured this guy's cement driveway. No, you didn't. No, cement is only a portion of what makes up concrete. So concrete is made up of Portland cement, it is made up of coarse aggregate, it's made up of fine aggregate, and what's the magical ingredient? H2O. So let's think about this. So we've got this coarse aggregate, which is stone or gravel. And so we have got, we're going to have a 5-gallon bucket here. And we're going to fill it up with aggregate, large aggregate. Actually, I'm going to do this a quicker way. I just bid on a bus last night, so I might be going to Lexington, South Carolina sometime this week if I win the bus. And I'm going to be starting on renovating the bus. And of course, it's too big. There we go. Okay, so we've got a 5-gallon bucket and we just filled it up with stone. I'm going to change this color so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, so the stone, you know, it takes up space, but it don't take up all the space because we got all this other little spaces around here as well. So we've got to go in and fill up all those spaces with some sand. So let's go up and fill up some of those spaces. Hopefully my machine here won't just absolutely die. It's calculating. Okay. And it didn't take, did it? Well, poo. Let's try again. It'll do it there. Why won't it do it there? Too many open holes, I guess. I'm going to select these other ones as well. Can't just select it all. Now let's see. No, that's going to fill up the holes too, isn't it? Well, shoot, it's not working. Let's see if we can get back here too. We'll just put it over top of it. It's not going to put it in between it, so we're just going to put it over top of it. Well, did it still not put it in there? Or maybe it's just so small I can't see it. It's so small I can't see it. Let's go back to 1. There we go. Okay, so we've got all of this other sand in there that's taken up some more of the or some more of this space in here. And, you know, it's taken up all this little stuff. But if you'll get really down here, you'll see that there are spaces between this sand. And that is where the cement comes into play. All right, so we've got the aggregate, we've got the sand. All right. And then if we if we blow up and look at this, then we're going to see that even the sand is got voids between it. So we're going to fill that up with cement. Remember, it's a powder form. It's almost like it is actually finer than flour. Okay. So it's super fine. All right. So now we're going to add okay. So this fine aggregate is sand. And now we're going to add the magic water here. So let's take this and let's blow it up as well. So in here, we have these small grains of powdered limestone that has been heated to a crazy, crazy temperature. And now we're going to add water to it. And just as soon as we add water to it, there's a little bit of water, then these limestone crystals start growing. And they grow in all sorts of different ways. And when they do, they interlace themselves with the other crystals that are growing from around all of those cement particles as well. And I don't have enough cement particles in here, but you get the idea that basically all of these you know, these little things here, they start growing and interlinking themselves with these other crystals. And when one crystal touches another, it will fuse together. So you get this fusion going on. And this helps bond all of this together. The large aggregate, the fine aggregate, and the Portland cement are all bound together. Stone is one of the biggest things that we know that is very, very strong. Okay, so this is super, super strong. I think, you know, diamond is the strongest element. There may be some others that are even more stronger than a diamond, but for all intents and purposes, we'll say that a diamond is strong. And, you know, it's a stone. Okay, so that means that it can go under a lot of compression. And I want to write that word here, compression. Compression is a force that we deal with, and we can use it in our favor. So we've got the stone under here, and we're going to say that we can get 100% compression out of the stone. The more stone, the harder the concrete. Let's just say that. Sand, the sand is put in with the concrete or with the stone in a ratio to the stone. So basically, again, what we're trying to do is take up the space between the stones in the sand. So the sand adds as a binder. So it binds the cement to the stone, helps bind all of this together. And when these crystals grow again, they become, all of this basically becomes as one. Now, how much water do we need to have this hydration process start? And the answer to that is as little as possible. All right, so let's think about as little as possible. Let's say that we're going to go out here and we're going to put up a pasture, okay? So we're going to set some posts in the ground, and we've dug a hole. We're going to set our post in the ground, and we're going to put in some concrete, okay, that has Portland cement, the coarse aggregate, the fine aggregate, but we're not going to put no water in it. So we're going to fill this up with concrete and sand and Portland cement. And we're going to take a stick and we're going to pack it in just like it might be dirt. Okay? We're going to pack all of that in just like I mean. We're going to put a little bit in, we're going to pack it down. We're going to put another little bit in, we're going to pack it down. We're going to put a little bit in, we're going to pack it down. And then we're going to walk away. Because what happens in this ground here, this ground has moisture in it. And it's going to start sucking this moisture clean out of this ground. And it goes back to the second law of thermodynamics is wet moves to dry. All right, so anything that there's any water whatsoever, it is going to try to move itself from a wet portion to a drier portion. So it's going to start sucking all of this moisture in here. And again, as little as possible, these crystals are going to start growing. The more water you put in your mix, the weaker these crystals will grow. Now, here kind of contradicts itself a little bit. So we've got this concrete in there, and we've put as little water in it as possible. And in this case, in the fence post, we've put in absolutely none, and we're just allowing nature to absorb water from the ground into the concrete. Now, once the concrete starts its hydration process and becomes hard, let's say 24 hours, okay? Actually, we don't even have to say, let's just say it's not 24 hours, go away. Let's say 8. Need to push my little button over here and get that to release some RAM. Let's say 8 hours, because I tell you what, you start concrete going, and in 8 hours, she's going to be so hard you could walk over it, okay? So 8 hours. After 8 hours, we need to take this concrete to 100% moisture. We need to flood that thing, okay? It's already set up. It's not going to mix. So if we could possibly, get us a waterfall going here into this and get this at 100% moisture content, 100% relative humidity, let's say it that way, 100%, and we can maintain a temperature of 73 degrees Fahrenheit, cha-ching, we are going to have the perfect concrete binding solid block that it's going to take everything you got, try to crush it and break it or whatever. All right. Again, little water is possible to mix it, to put it in place. After 8 hours, make it 100% water or 100% moisture content, relative humidity. And actually, I'm going to change that to a positive. I don't want you guys to get at a positive 73 degrees. That is when we get the best of the best of the best of the best. And that is pretty much it in a nutshell. So how do we test these? For one, let me get rid of this real quick. So I've got some little things down here about testing concrete, slump test video, and I don't have the test. Maybe I do have, I don't know. Let me just pull that up right quick. Concrete testing. When I was in college, I was a concrete tester. I got to go around to the different places, and we basically made these cylinders, and then we basically tested them. So what happens is you have a cylinder. Spell it. Cylinders. You've got these cylinders, and they come in a variety of sizes that you can use to test them. And so some are reusable. These plastic ones like this are not reusable. The ones that I did when I was in college were 6x12, which is this one. They make them much smaller now in a 4x8. And it's basically, when you go to test this, you have to figure out the square footage of the surfaces to figure out your PSI when you're crushing these things. And so when you get to the job site, you're going to make two. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to hit my little mute button is right beside my other button here. So we're gonna take a trip to the concrete or to the job site, and the old truck's going to be sitting out here, and he's going to be pouring concrete. See if I can make a halfway decent dump truck here. I haven't drawn trucks and stuff in a very long time. So we're going to be pouring some concrete here, and the first thing as a technician is going to do, he's going to take these cylinders and he's going to fill these cylinders up, and there's a way to do that. And that's where I want you to watch that slump test. I want you to watch the slump test over here on not far enough now. Slump test. Well, I want you to watch these videos here on the slump test. So these are made in the very same manner. To give you a real quick and dirty sense on this, I would take and I would fill this up about 1/3, and then I have a rod that has a bull nose on the end of it, and I've got to rod this 25 times. And then I'm going to fill it up some more, and I'm going to rod it 25 times. And then I'm going to fill it up to the top, and I'm going to rod it 25 times. And I'm going to make 4 of these, and I'm going to set them somewhere on the job site overnight. I'm not going to touch them. I don't want nobody messing with them. Basically, I want them to go under the same. Why can I not hit the damn eraser? I want to clear it all. I just want the eraser, guys. Come on. Okay, we'll just do that then. So we're going to save these 4. And like I say, these are going to be left on the job site. For, roughly 24 hours. Then we're going to take them to a lab. And in the lab, we're going to have a bucket of water. And this water is going to be at, you guessed it, 73 degrees. And we're going to put these cylinders in here. We're going to take the plastic off of them at this time. And we're just going to put the cylinders in here. We'll take the plastic off and write the job name on them. And then we're going to put them in this water at 73 degrees, and they're going to sit there. So 7 days are going to pass. And in 7 days, I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to put it under the, stress. I'm going to put it under a test there. And it's going to slowly start adding pressure to it until this thing explodes or cracks or something. There's a little gauge on it. You can watch the numbers, and once the numbers start falling, you've reached your maximum and you can just stop. So it will save the maximum number, and you take that number and you divide it by the area of the top and bottom, or just the top, basically the area of the cylinder, and that is going to give you the PSI of the cylinder. All right. At 7 days, we should reach 50%. 50% of what? So concrete, remember that we're trying to get to a PSI. So we're going to set the PSI. We're going to call this in. We're going to order this concrete. And for all intents and purposes, the code says you can't do anything less than 2,500 PSI concrete. But most of the time, ideally, we try to hit for 3,000. 3,000 PSI is the magic number that a lot of the concrete that we go to. Now, that's not for everything. Let's say, we're talking about those big high-rise buildings. All right, that concrete footing that's holding all of that high-rise building cannot be 3,000 PSI, because 3,000 PSI might be reached within the first 100 feet. So they can go way on up into the tens of thousands PSI just by changing different types of mixtures within the concrete. For 3,000 PSI concrete, you're going to want to do 3 parts stone, and this is by weight, by the way, not by volume. 3 parts stone, 2 parts sand, 1 part cement. You need to remember this. You're going to see this again. 1, 2, 3. It's that simple. 3 parts stone, 2 parts sand, 1 part cement. And how much water? Yep, you guessed it, as little as possible. All right. I've heard some people say, oh, well, you need to put in 11 to 17%. Well, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But for right now, I want you to add as little as possible. Little as possible. LAP. So in 7 days, 3,000 PSI concrete should yield us 1,500 PSI. So that was the first one. On the second one, we're going to do the same thing at 14 days. And at 14 days, we should get about 75% of 3,000. What is that? I'm not even going to attempt it the way my brain's been going. That is 2,100. All right, we should be reaching 2,100 or more. Okay, so if we get more, that's good. All right, at 14 days. Now we're going to take the third one, and at 28 days, we better be getting 100%. 3,000 PSI or more. Okay. 7, 14, 28 days is your magic numbers. 50%, 75%, 100 is your magic numbers. What do we do with this fourth one? If this did not meet 1,500, or this one did not meet 2,100, or the one at 28 days did not meet 3,000 PSI, then we're going to take this fourth one and we're going to bust it. We're going to test it. And if it busts at 3,000 PSI or greater, then we have a choice that we have to make. Can we stop here? You know, was this one up here maybe 1,400? Was this one here maybe 2,000? Was this one here at $29.99? But this one busted at 3,000. So there's a choice that has to be made there to see how bad did these do. If all of these may have busted low, but this one busted okay, we're still going to go to step 5. Okay, so we've done 4 steps here. What is step 5? Step 5, if one of these fail severely, let's say, then we're going to go to the job site and we're going to take a core. We may take more than one core. In other words, we're going to go out here to our concrete pad and we're going to cut a hole in it, and we're going to pull out a piece of that concrete, and we're going to take it back to the shop, to the lab, and we're going to bust it. If it fails, we may take one more core at a different place, and we're going to test it. Now, again, this depends on how bad it failed. All right. So let's say that this one failed, or this one, yeah, let's say that this one failed at 2,900. We test this one at 3,000. All right. But this one tested at 2,900. All right. We have a choice of a couple of things that we can do. Number one, we can come back with 100% moisture or relative humidity at 73 degrees for 24 hours, and we can try to retest this to get a better test out of it. All right. If it all fails completely and totally, then the contractor's going to have to pull all this concrete out, and we're going to have to start again. All right. Most of the time for concrete pads, it's not a big issue unless it's in industry and you have like a lot of weight on it. You remember those big turbines that I was telling you about out in Charleston, South Carolina, that sat on 12 feet of concrete? Buddy, these here, they are probably, you know, I'd say they're probably 20,000 PSI. I mean, they're just nuts, crazy stuff. And I can guarantee you they tested and tested and tested and tested and tested to make sure that they would withstand the impact that's going to be put on this. Any questions so far? Okay, good. Let's take us about 10 minutes. I'll see you back at 1:34.